Welcome to another episode of Women in Focus. Our woman in focus today is visiting us, and she's here from India. Her name is Meena Murdeshwar, and she is our woman in focus today. You're most welcome in our program. How are you doing?
Thank you. Vancouver seems to have suited me.
Yes.
It's been like a sanatorium for me. I came here a little battered.
Yes.
But I'm much better now.
Well, that's very nice to hear.
Yeah.
So, how long have you been visiting?
3 months, and I have a month to go.
Oh, fantastic. And you've brought this hot weather with you, I guess.
I hope so. Because that's what I suffered the cold. Now I'm enjoying the heat.
That's good. So when you came, it was a little colder, wasn't it?
It was.
So the place where you've come from, so where do you live right now?
Pune.
Pune. So is the weather in Pune the same all year round, or do you have...
This time we had a slightly colder winter.
Oh.
And a slightly longer winter.
Really?
But by winter, it's no more, it's about like what it is today here.
That's your winter.
This is winter for us, yes.
So, when I found out about you visiting, I was very fascinated to hear from your daughter, because you're visiting your daughter here, right?
Yes, yes.
I was fascinated to find out that you've been a teacher for so many years, but I will talk about that in a minute. But let's take you back, and where were you born?
I was born in Bombay. The old Bombay. I still call it Bombay. I'm not onto Mumbai.
I call it Bombay as well, yes.
Yeah. And my grandfather, the day I was born,
Yes.
had to go for an interview where he became the chairman of the Dena Bank.
Oh,
And
the big bank.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
And my mother had planned another name for me.
Yes.
But he said no, since I was lucky for him, he got the job. He had the prerogative of naming me. So that's how I'm Meena.
Meena, isn't that beautiful?
My grandfather was a Dabholkar. They were the original settlers of Bombay.
Oh, I see.
They've been there for generations. And it was their ancestral home
Yes.
that was broken up.
Yeah.
And the joint family split at that time, and the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan was built on the land that was their old traditional house, ancestral house.
Oh, wow, wow.
It's near Chowpatty,
Yes.
which is almost on the sea face of Bombay.
So people who haven't been to India probably wouldn't know what Chowpatty is. Chowpatty is one of the most famous...
Because of the bhel, that's why I mentioned it.
Okay.
Yes.
So Chowpatty is where in the evening people go and have a good time near the sea.
Promenade, you might call it. After that comes the Marine Drive,
Okay.
contiguous with the Chowpatty.
Right.
Chowpatty is where you come to eat. You sit in the sand and you eat the bhel.
I see. Lovely.
But while you're walking on Marine Drive.
Right. And that's one of the most beautiful areas of Bombay.
The Queen's Necklace,
Ah,
as
because
they call it, because it's a round-shaped walk,
yes,
and you can see the lights in the evening, looking
must
very
look
pretty.
beautiful. Oh, yes.
So that's why the promenade is called the Queen's Necklace.
Because Bombay is many islands together, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
So
now,
in
much like your Vancouver,
Yes.
much like your Vancouver.
Yeah, we've got Surrey adjoining us, and then Richmond adjoining.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. So that's why you have fit in beautifully here.
I enjoy the place, as I said. I enjoy it. I enjoy looking at the water every now and again. We are going by a river or something or the other. It's a wonderful scene.
Beautiful. So when you were growing up, so did you grow up in Bombay?
No. That was only where my mother went to have her baby.
I see.
After that,
apne nani ke. I see.
My father was in the police, so we were posted all over. And I started life in Alibag, Bombay to Alibag.
Oh, wow.
Where he was the day. Then I was in Pune, I was in Solapur, I was in largely we were in Gujarat.
Very
we had
nice.
3 postings there.
Wow.
And I began speaking Gujarati. I didn't speak Marathi as I grew up.
So Marathi is your mother tongue?
Yes.
But Gujarati, can you understand Gujarati now?
Yes, fluently.
Yeah. So came cho tame?
Yeah.
Majama.
Sarama.
Okay.
But as I said, we moved from place to place.
Yeah.
And I had an old ayah who looked after me, a baby ayah as they call them. Baby Aya. She was only to look after me.
I see.
And she was from the fisherfolk community of Alibag. So the Marathi I learnt was more of a dialect, not the pure Marathi that is spoken in urban places.
I see.
But because of that, I continued to talk in Marathi with her.
With her, I see. So how many languages do you speak?
I speak Marathi, I know Gujarati,
Yeah.
Hindi of course,
Yes.
and the Hyderabadi Hindi, Urdu, which is very different.
Yes, it
I'll
is.
give you a rendition of that later if you want.
Right, right. I would love that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then a little bit of
And
English.
English all the time.
So did you finish your graduation in one of these in Gujarat or where?
No, I did not graduate. I got married after my senior Cambridge from Secunderabad.
Oh.
My husband had already, I'd met him.
Yeah.
He was a trainee pilot in Hyderabad
I see.
at Hakim
And
Pet.
how did you meet him?
Well, that's how I met him. I mean, he came over
Uh-huh.
to collect his coat, which had been left behind in Bombay,
I see.
and my aunt had brought it down for him.
I see.
He came to collect it, but then, as you will realize, when a fighter pilot sees his prey, he stays on the tail.
So it was love at first sight for him.
I would say so.
Oh, beautiful.
But I would love to think so. But I got married soon after my inter. In those days, we had 2 years of college,
Yes.
which was inter.
Yeah.
And my husband was 8 to 10 years older than I am.
Right.
So it was the right age for him to marry career-wise.
Ah.
And so we were almost the first persons to get married in that group of his.
Very nice. So you must have been very young when you got married.
I was 18. My father had to start. I was not quite 18.
Yes.
My father had to sign my marriage certificate.
Oh, so you couldn't sign your.
I couldn't. I was not yet 18. I became 18 the following month.
And then did you move with him?
All over. All over.
Now his last name is very interesting, Murudeshwar.
Yes.
I want to ask you a little bit about that because there is a story attached to
Yes,
it as
yes.
well. Let's take a short commercial break.
Okay.
And we'll be right
I'll come
back.
back for that.
We're talking to a very interesting woman today. Her name is Meena Murdeshwar. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Our woman in focus today is Meena Murdeshwar, who's visiting here from Pune.
Pune.
Now, Pune, Bombay, Mumbai.
It's politically correct to say Pune,
I see.
but I still say Pune. I still say Mumbai, Bombay.
Now, you got married, and your husband's last name is very interesting. It's Murudeshwar. Now, we were talking on a radio program, and you mentioned that Murudeshwar there's a temple.
It's a small temple town. It was very, very small, very small. In fact, we only had a lodge coming up there.
I see.
Nothing else, little
Right.
sailboats. And when we used to go down there with my mother-in-law, we did not even plan lunch.
Right.
We had to wait for the launch to come in and see what they had brought, what kind of fish. And that was the fish we had for lunch.
Oh,
We couldn't plan a meal ahead.
so
We
that.
were dependent upon whatever the launch brought in.
I see, I see. So when you say the launch brought in, what do you mean by that?
The launches went out to for the day's catch,
Oh, I see.
for the fishing catch.
So now the temple of Murudeshwar is in that area.
Yes, it's on an island, just off the coastline is a small rocky island. Actually, it's a rock. It's a huge rock, and the temple is there. Murudeshwar, Murad means to twist.
I see.
So this is a piece of the rock that has been twisted.
It's twisted, I see.
And therefore it's Murudeshwar. It forms the linga, the Shiva linga.
Oh,
but
because it's a
got-
Shiva's
yes,
temple.
Yes, but it's got the markings of 4 fingers on it. So
Oh,
as if
isn't
it
that
has been
interesting?
twisted out of the rock.
Oh, wow. And so you mentioned that it is away from the mainland.
Yes.
So would you have to go in a boat or anything like
We
that?
could walk on a low tide.
Oh, I see.
We could not go there on a high tide
Because it.
at our time.
Oh, I see.
But now 15, 20 years later when we went there,
Yes.
It has been made into an isthmus. In other words, it has been joined
with the mainland.
with the mainland.
Ah.
And by this simple expedient of joining it, it has become a boom town. It has become a boom town for pilgrims. Because this temple, which was, it is part of the 5 temples you have to visit in Karnataka.
Oh, I see.
But it was only, as I told you, at low tide that you could visit. By high tide, you had to all get back onto the mainland.
Right.
Now, there are tourists coming buses. They come in from 6 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Until 11 at night.
Whether it is high tide or low tide.
Low tide.
I see.
And you have any number of hotels, you have little chalets.
Yeah.
It's absolutely boom town. And the girls who are there have found re-employment or employment as little housekeepers, as little accountants.
Very nice.
I could not believe it. And they've been trained very professionally.
Yes.
So they tuck the sheets in just right. They do everything just so. Because they have to cater to the tourist.
That's right. So your family's name, so all the people who lived in Murudeshwar have the last name?
Yes.
Okay.
You see,
so it's the name of the
when
village.
you talk about it in Canaries,
Yes.
you say that Mohan from Murudeshwar.
Ah.
You say that Vasant from Murudeshwar. So it becomes Vasant Murudeshwar or Mohan Murudeshwar.
Ah, okay, okay.
Surnames come about like that.
I see, I see. So you married this pilot, and how many kids do you have?
I have 2. I have a daughter who's here,
Yes.
and I have a son in Minneapolis.
I see. Have you visited him in this trip?
No, he's had an accident,
I see.
and I basically didn't want to travel.
Oh,
This
yeah.
was a get well trip, and I had to stay in one place to get well.
So when you had your daughter, so you finished your inter and then you got married and you're roaming around with your husband all over India, all over the world or just India?
India.
India. So, and then you get pregnant and you have your
When I had my children,
yes.
Schooling was not what it is today.
Right.
Today we have army schools, Air Force schools.
Yes.
In those days we did not.
Oh.
With the result that in every state that we got posted to, they had to learn a different regional language.
Oh, the kids had to learn
The
different
kids
language.
had to learn.
Oh, wow.
They had English,
Yeah.
they had Hindi,
Yeah.
and they had to learn a different language.
Right.
When we were in Shillong,
Yeah.
my daughter came home to say, Mama,
Ah.
you have to give me a certificate to say we are Sardars. I said, why? She said, only Sardars can take Hindi. I can't. I have to take either Bengali or Assamese. So you see, it became, and she learnt Kakha Gaga in Tamil Nadu when we were there.
Yes.
Then we came to Shillong.
Yeah.
She was back to Kakha Gaga. And we went to Ghaziabad thereafter, the next
Yes.
posting.
Yes.
And there it was Mahabharat stories with Jod Akshar.
Oh. And
Hindi.
what's that? Oh,
In
okay.
the Hindi.
Yes.
So it was difficult to make them cope at every place.
Right.
Secondly,
Yeah.
my husband was always aware that if anything were to happen to him, the children would be bereft. So he wanted them to learn to have self-reliant skills from the beginning.
Beautiful.
And that is why we put both into boarding schools.
Oh, I see.
My son went to the Hyderabad Public School, and my daughter went to the Maharani Gayatri Devi School in Jaipur.
That's interesting.
They were small, they were 8 and 9 years old.
Right.
It broke my heart to put them away.
Yeah.
But we had to take the decision because they could not cope with a different regional language
Every time.
every second year.
And that affects their learning capacity as well and capability too.
Yes, yes.
I wanted to, I know that you became a teacher, and I want to find out, there was a catalyst moment when you became a teacher.
Yes,
How
yes.
did that happen? But let's take a very short break and come back.
Okay.
We're talking to Meena Murdeshwar, and we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Meena Murdeshwar is our Woman in Focus today. So you've got such beautiful stories and such a beautiful life. And I know that you're a teacher for the past 60 years and you're still teaching.
Yes.
And you still teach.
Yes.
Okay. So how did teaching come about?
One, let me begin at the beginning. I think it began with a lot of envy.
Envy?
Envy, because all my friends we were in the Punjab.
Yes.
And all of them had matching cardigans and matching shawls. And we from the south, we went with one maroon sweater, which we wore in the daytime, and a black sweater, which we wore in the evenings.
I see.
And a maroon coat and a black coat. And this concept of matching had just come in.
I see.
I'm talking of the 60s.
Yes.
1960s. And everyone wore matching winter wear,
yes,
which I didn't have. And I couldn't possibly have afforded it with 2 children
yes,
and my husband's then salary.
Right.
So I said I must earn something. And just then it happened that once when I'd gone to leave my son at the school,
right,
his teacher was absent. Knowing that I was from a convent background, the nun said, "Will you stay on?" And I said, "Listen, I've got a 11-month-old at home. I can't really stay on just like that, but from tomorrow I'll make arrangements and I'll come. I'll help you out for 2-3 days." And my daughter was a terribly independent child.
Ah, she still is
As
now.
a baby, she was terribly independent.
Yes.
And very programmed. The nicest thing about my daughter was she was so programmed.
Yes.
If you wanted her to wake up at a particular time in the morning,
Yeah.
you had to count 12 hours backward and put her to sleep 12 hours earlier. And everything was on the dot after that.
I see.
It was easy to bring her up. It was very lovely to bring her up.
Right.
So I thought about it, and I said that the timing that I would be out would be just enough for her pram ride,
Yeah.
and she'd come back and sleep on the carpet,
Right.
and get up and possibly have her 10 o'clock feed. I would be back by 12. And I had a little girl looking after her. Plus I had a dog, a Doberman.
And she loved the dog.
He loved her. She loved it. Besides the point. When I went out, he just took charge. He thought now he was in charge.
I see.
So I tell all my friends and neighbors, "Please keep an eye on her. Please keep an eye on her." And they said, "Keep an eye on her? Your dog doesn't let us come anywhere near the pram." So then when she would wake up, she would hold on to his belt. And it would get up very slowly, and he was her walker. She would walk holding she learned to walk holding the dog's belt.
Wow.
He kept complete charge until I came over. Then he would go and flop in one corner and go to sleep.
He was so tired.
He was absolutely in charge of her. And even thereafter, if she played in the front of the house, he was in the front of the house. If she was in the back of the house, he was there. He just had to look after her.
So that started you to get your profession.
I could then move out.
Right.
And when I did, the nun at the convent, she would keep giving me magazines, which trained me into the Montessori way of teaching.
Ah.
And at the end of it all, when I'd made my notes and I'd done everything that she'd helped me to do, she said, "I can't give you the degree, Mr. Murudeshwar, but for all purposes, you're a Montessori teacher."
Really?
Now this helped.
Yes.
And the little salary I got in those days helped to buy me my matching sweaters.
Matching sweaters. Oh, the story ends up with matching sweaters.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So that's how I got into teaching.
And then did you get your degrees?
Yes. My husband, when I had got married, had promised my father, "I will educate your daughter, don't worry." Because my father was loath to get me married at that young age.
Right.
Thinking that I hadn't completed my education.
Right, right.
So
that was important for you, right?
Yes, yes.
So as a child, how many siblings are you?
I have only a younger brother.
That's it.
Yes.
And your father was?
My father was IG police.
Right.
We were posted from place to place. And he saw the importance of education.
Yes, of course.
And then it so happened that when we were just past this interlude of teaching, we had a senior officer's wife visiting us.
Right.
And she mentioned that we'd like to help you, but the widow's pension you get now will not even let you stay in the servants' quarter of your house right now.
So you became a widow?
No.
Oh, I see.
She planned. She made it as a.
I see. I see.
If anything were to happen to you,
yeah, so you would not
we'd like to help you, but you must learn to help yourself.
Oh, I see.
And she said, "Please qualify yourself while you live in the comfort of your husband's homes. Because it's only then that we can help you.
I see.
Very dramatically, she went back to Delhi, and 2 days later she was widowed herself.
Oh my God.
Her husband died in an air crash.
Oh wow. So that must have been...
That woke up everybody on the station. And 4 of us went back to teaching thereafter, qualifying ourselves.
Right.
And I think that remained because people understood that we had to get further qualifications.
Yeah.
In our day, as long as you were a senior Cambridge, you spoke English, and you could manage at the parties, that was all that was needed of a service wife.
Right.
Defense services wife. You didn't need any more equipment than that. But we could see that the times were changing, and we did need to equip ourselves.
To advance yourself and to make money for yourself and enhance the income of the household.
No, our incomes are very, very minimal in those. Nothing like what it is today.
Right.
But the pilots are looked after very well now.
Yeah.
Not pilots, also all officers.
Right.
But in our days, it was enough. We were also living on the cost of living was very much lower.
Right.
And one could manage very happily.
Meena ji, your stories are so interesting. I don't think we can, end interviewing you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to ask you to stay. We'll have to end this program.
Right.
And maybe, start another one with your stories continuing.
Okay.
It's going to be very interesting talking to you because we haven't even come to the part where your kids have grown up and they've married and moved out and your husband and you with the empty nest syndrome and so on and so forth. But let's take a short, let's end this program and then we'll start again.
Okay.
Thank you for being a woman in focus today. Meena Murdeshwar has been a woman in focus today. Don't go away. We'll have to have part 2 of this one right after this.